Thank you, Chairman Dorgan, and Secretary Echohawk. I first want to applaud you for the initiatives you talked about that you're carrying out in order to try to get on top of school safety and school violence and all of the problems that plague the BIA schools. And I think one of the keys is, as you've said, is mobilizing these other resources around the federal government, the Department of Justice and Health and Human Services, and getting them involved in the problem. That's a very positive thing, I think, to see the Department of Justice take on the issue that you outlined there a little bit earlier. Let me ask you the question, when you look at the resources that are needed to do the job in terms of getting the schools safe, and then the lack of resources and what you have. I mean, obviously you're using what you have right now. How do you determine in the overall picture, what are the most serious violations at these schools? Where are the kids in the most danger, and then how do you tackle those? It seems like you've got a situation where you have significant deterioration overall, but then identifying the schools where there's the worst problems and then trying to tackle those. What do you bring to this effort to do that?
Well, Senator Udall, are you speaking about the physical structures?
The structures, the safety violations, the code violations, all of the things that I think have come out in the last Inspector General reports and other OIG reports and things like that.
You know, I understand your question to be, how do we identify the really critical areas?
Well, you've got so much to do, and it's so big. How do you get focused in to pick the things that may be a disaster tomorrow, rather than, because you can't do them all? That's I guess my question. And you know, do you have somebody on top of that, looking at that and trying to identify preventing the disasters of tomorrow?
Well, I think it's already been testified to that the kind of problems that we're talking about exist in virtually all, regions, all schools. And to prioritize where we put that, I think there's got to be some attention given to that. I don't know if either Jack Reaver, he's the one that would probably know most about that, or Bart Stevens have any comment about what specifically they're doing. But, in terms of my knowledge base, I know that the problems are pervasive and we're trying to deal with them in all schools.
Yeah. Either you all get my, and I know you're trying to deal with all the problems. It's just that if a school's going to fall down and kill 20 kids or 100 kids or something like that tomorrow, that's the one I'd want you to be on top of, rather than the other things that are going to happen down the line. I mean, that's the kind of urgency that I'm talking about in my questioning here.
Senator, I'm Jack Reaver, the Director of Facilities, Environmental, Cultural Resources, and Safety, and run the evaluation programs for schools, measuring the deficiencies, measuring the risk. And so it's a risk management issue that you've identified, and we have a multitude of inspection processes that we go through. We have the annual workplace safety inspections, which is OSHA-based reviews, and that's the electrical outlets and whether the operating equipment in the shops have the proper guards on them to make sure the kids or the teachers don't get hurt. We also have triennial inspections by engineers and engineering technicians to go through and evaluate each building that we have, particularly the schools. And in addition, of course, the primary responsibility is for the people on site, the facility managers, and they identify these deficiencies to us. We then go through a risk assessment. We look at there's two contexts for all risk assessment. One is the likelihood of occurrence of whatever might be resulting from that deficiency, and then the consequences of that occurrence happening. And then we rate those in a category of 1 through 5. 1, if it's an imminent problem, an emergency, regardless of cost, it's going to be corrected or countered within 8 hours. That is the requirement, and we're very successful. Those never show up on any reports because a phone call to my staff in Albuquerque to identify that particular problem marshals the resources and the dollars to solve it. A good example, this has happened to us. We've had a school in which a structural engineer published a report that came to my desk within hours that said that there was a structural problem. I ordered the school closed and the students evacuated until we could get a structural engineering firm in there to do a full evaluation. That obviously is number one. I mean, we do not operate schools that represent an imminent danger to students, faculty, or visitors. And that's how we prioritize our work. I wish we had sufficient funds to answer every deficiency, but we prioritize the most efficient, most risk to the students and take care of it immediately. And we work our way down to the extent that our physical capability lets us to do that. When I say physical, I mean dollars that lets us do that. So that's how we meet those. That's how we establish priorities for immediate response and long-term response for our projects.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. And Chairman Dorgan, I know I've run over a little bit. Greatly appreciate your courtesies on that. Thank you.
Udall, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I see Assistant Secretary Echo Hawk is still here. And one of the things, and we'll put this in a question in writing, but my staff's given me a look at the total educational construction funding here. And you look at fiscal year 2004 through 2010, there's large amounts of money being carried over from year to year. I mean, significant amounts of money. I mean, millions and millions of dollars. And so I'm wondering, with all this money being carried over, we should be able to fix a lot of the things that are going on. So it isn't just an issue of additional resources. It's an issue of using the resources that you have from year to year. And I'm going to do everything I can, working with Senator Dorgan and the rest of the committee, to see that we get the message all the way up to the President that he needs to come forward with a budget that's going to take care of these situations when it comes to our school children.